Welcome to the Gypsy Nurses Fall 22 Virtual Conference. We are so happy you could join us yet again for another educational yet fun few days. This year, we will be focusing on a new season of travel nursing. We will have 9 travel healthcare industry experts giving their insights and advice on how you can turn a new leaf in travel nursing, whether you're new to the adventure or have hiked a mountain or 2 of assignments already. All of these sessions will be on demand on the gypsynurse.com. You can find these events by coming up to the event tab and clicking on demand events. So you can watch this any place, anytime, any assignment, any location. They will be there for you. While you're at the gypsynurse.com, be sure to become a registered member and join our online community, where when you sign up, you'll be able to sign up for job alerts, content alerts, and even event alerts, as well as receive discounts on CEUs, car rentals, and on the infamous TravCon 2023 tickets, which don't forget to save the date for next year's largest in-person travel healthcare conference in beautiful Las Vegas, September 17th through the 20th, 2023 at the Paris. We hope to see most of you that are watching in person next year, so that way we can put some faces to some names and get to really know our community in person. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Nurse First, for being this year's virtual conference sponsor. We would like to take a minute to learn a little bit more about Nurse First, so enjoy. Nurse First is a travel staffing agency that is focused on putting nurses first so nurses can focus on what matters most. Nurse First is different because the agency is founded and staffed by former nurses, so they know what you need. They are committed to creating a culture of agency with nurse, not agency versus nurse. Nurse First takes you where you want to go in your life and career. How? Nurse First promotes trusting partnerships among travelers and staff through genuine advocacy and transparency. This means telling you everything, even the information you didn't know you needed. With a team dedicated to advocating for nurses, travelers can find success anywhere they go and the assignments of their dreams. Nurse First Travel Agency founder and CEO, Jeremy Commisso, is our conference keynote speaker this year because Nurse First is leading the change for a positive employment culture for travel nurses. Nurse First encourages travel nurses to take charge of their own work schedule to best fit their lifestyle and family needs. Nurse First turns travel nurse staffing opportunities into incredible employment experiences. Learn more about this travel agency at nursefirsttravel.com. I'd now like to welcome our keynote speaker. He is the CEO and founder of Nurse First Travel Agency. Please welcome Jeremy Commisso as he shares how to turn travel nurse staffing opportunities into incredible employment experiences. So thank you, Jeremy, so much for joining us, and thank you for being our Fall 2022 virtual conference sponsor. We're really excited about this year's conference and excited to have you join us today.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Excited to be here.
Definitely. We have some questions for you. So we're going to do a little bit of an interview style with Jeremy here. So my first question is, why is a positive employment culture important for travel nurses?
Yeah, I mean, I think this even exceeds travel nurses. This is just employment in general, right? I think, as an employer, and one of the things we talk about with everybody in our company, travel nurses and internal staff alike, is, as an employer, you get to have the responsibility and obligation to, focus on doing good more so than doing well, right? And have doing well be kind of a side effect, so to say, or an afterthought even of doing good. If you have a very effective mission, if you have, a sound vision that's guiding, where you're going, that's the key. And so as it relates to travel nurses in particular, it really goes back to my time as a travel nurse. One of the things I oftentimes experienced was an agency versus not necessarily an agency with culture. And as a travel nurse, I mean, I always assimilated it as being as different from staff nursing, as student nursing and staff nursing are different, right? When you're actually in the real world, it's very different. Well, being a travel nurse, although you are a W-2 employee, you are kind of on your own island, right? You don't have the security, if you will, that you have being one of many staff nurses within a conglomerate healthcare system. So that rock, if you will, is your agency, right? That's really what we are here for, is not just to pay a lot of money and get you wherever you want to go. I mean, that just speaks to the job, but the experience is knowing that, hey, you're not just important to us until we start making money on you. And now that you're active in assignment, let's put you on the back burner and you can't ever reach us, right? For us, that's when you're most important. And that's why at Nurse First, we are so focused on relationships and retention, because that speaks to how are we treating you when you're, needing us the most, when you are on assignment, when you may be having your issues. So, I think that employment culture that really speaks to positively giving a fantastic or an amazing employment experience, if that's the focus, everything else takes care of itself, right? I mean, the job and the money is what it is going into it, but the isolation and how lonely it can feel being a travel nurse can be negated if your company, if your agency, if your representative at the agency, whether it's a recruiter or traveler advocate as we have, if they are with you, if you believe that you're heard and understood, that's a game changer. And that's, going back to even, what got people to start traveling. A lot of times, yeah, sure, it's money and sure, it's the thrill of the adventure, but it's typically, as with most people who leave jobs, you don't leave the job, you leave the management, you leave the company culture, right? And it's typically because you're an afterthought. And that's really where we flipped it on its head. We want the nurses who are on assignment, who are entrusting us with their livelihoods, to have no reason to ever doubt that they are the most important thing to this company, to their traveler advocate, the focus of their traveler advocate's time and energy. And so, although it's long-winded, obviously I'm very passionate about the fact that, the deeper and deeper someone gets within our organization, or the more ingrained they get with trust and trusting us with their livelihood, the more important that they are to us. And we need to make sure that they see that. And frankly, we want to have people for a long time, not just one time, right? And so you only do that by earning it, right? You get people interested by having, nice pay packages and the jobs of interest, but you keep them by the experience that they received while on that assignment, because they have choices, right? And I love that they have choices, because it's, better for us when they opt to stay, right? That it speaks higher to us and of us when they decide to continue to stay with us and continue to kind of advance this movement that is Nurse First.
Definitely. And I see so many times in our network group, just people posting like, hey, any new recruiter? Mine just went MIA. And so we see that a lot. So it's nice to have a company that is just like so passionate about their nurses that they're not going to just abandon them. So we appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's, getting even a little bit deeper into how we do it. I mean, it's really based around, how are people incentivized, right? I mean, it's, the three core principles of business are what you measure gets done, what you incentivize gets done, and what you prioritize gets done. Well, part of how we incentivize our traveler advocates is, they're not paid a commission based off of a percentage of gross profit. They're paid a flat amount per traveler on assignment. And then they also get a retention commission, which speaks to, hey, the longer you keep each traveler, the more money you make per traveler, right? It doesn't cut into the traveler's pay at all. We don't negotiate up or down gross profit margins, which means we have to pay nurses more or less to move that needle. It is what it is. The rest of it, what the traveler advocates make in commission is a flat fee. So, in the pre-COVID world where Cath lab nurses were typically paid the highest, and med surg nurses were typically, towards the lower end of the pay package spectrum, I didn't want a med surg nurse treated any differently than a cath lab nurse, right? It's still their one assignment. They're still entrusting us with their livelihood, and they deserve to have that exact same treatment, that exact same, almost incentivizing the exact same care and compassion and empathy from the traveler advocate. And so really focusing on, not making it so someone has to lose for the nurse to get the experience that they want, that's huge. And if we incentivize keeping people longer, it directly incentivizes not putting people on the back burner when they are of most value to the company financially, which is when they're actually working and making money, right, for the company and for themselves. That was something that I always thought was just backwards, and it didn't have to be. And so that was one of the fundamental founding principles of our company.
That's awesome. Well, you did bring up how passionate you are about positive employment culture. So why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like I said, right? It's, first and foremost, having a nursing background myself and, experiencing the good, the bad, and the ugly of travel nursing myself, it allowed me to, when I started Nurse First back in 2017, to really focus on, how do we make this better, right? If I had to keep bouncing around trying to find the agency that I thought was the best, when we set out to create the one, I had kind of that perspective from the nurse's perspective, that said, hey, here are some true fundamental gaps are from my personal experience and what I've heard from, coworkers that were travel nurses. And so, again, some of those topics are really encompassed in the phrase agency with nurse, not agency versus nurse. And that's really speaking to that partnership, right? Our belief is that first and foremost, we don't make a dime off of a traveler who never works for us, right? And we make almost sometimes even less money off of nurses who work with us once and have a good reason to talk poorly about us, because not only do we lose them, we lose the potential prospects they're telling not to come work for us, right? And so if we can fix that by providing amazing experiences, we keep people. I mean, our retention rates are over 80% contract over contract. So after every contract, only 1 out of 5 people leave our organization. That's huge to us. That's something I am so proud of and so passionate about, because that speaks to the relationships they have with their traveler advocate, their perception of our organization. And that's what it's all about. And so, really just providing that experience for travelers that are on assignment, and again, entrusting us with their livelihoods, that is what we are passionate about. And, so I guess if I could sum it up into one topic, that is the topic, is treat people the way that they should be treated, because they are entrusting you with their livelihood. And without them, we make nothing, no money. We can't be here another quarter, right, if we have no business. But we also believe they can't get the same experience with any other organization that they could get with us. And so that's what kind of wakes us up in the morning.
That's awesome. And like I said, there needs to be more people like you guys out there. And it seems to be there's less and less, but I think it's starting to grow. More people are starting to push that out there. So I think that is great. So how can a travel nurse know if an assignment is going to be a positive employment culture? Obviously, they're working with you guys, so they kind of already know. But when they get to the hospital, what are their, signs that they're going to have a positive one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's no crystal ball, right? I mean, we can make educated guesses, and we can speak to the experiences that have been reported by travelers that we've had who have worked at this facility. But to a certain extent, we can only control so much going into the assignment, right? And so we know the kind of care and compassion and empathy they're going to experience with our internal staff. But I would be lying, and it would be misleading to say, hey, I guarantee this hospital is going to be great. Some of the things, though, that we have seen be commonalities and good kind of guiding principles, if you will, going into assignments are, first and foremost, if you are nice as a person, this is just, sociology, right? If you are nice, it is more difficult for people to be mean to a person that's nice to them, because the stigma of, travel nurses always get taken advantage of, hospitals don't like travel nurses. Frankly, sure, maybe high ups at hospitals don't like paying what they have to pay for travel nurses, but the people that you're working alongside are happy that you're there because guess what? They're not getting mandated to work overtime now because of you being there. But with that being said, travel nurses, and this is something that when I was working as a travel nurse, this was my perspective. When I was early on in the organization and I was still recruiting, this is what I would tell travel nurses. And this is what our travel nurse or traveler advocates say to travel nurses now is you are a guest, right? And so your job is not to go into this hospital and tell them how to be a hospital. It is to go in and help a staffing shortage, right? Take care of patients because that patient health, that patient experience is still first and foremost, no matter if you're a traveler, student nurse, or staff nurse, right? It's taking care of the patient. That is the goal. And having more staff allows hospitals to fill more beds, which allows them to care effectively for more patients. So recommendations for travel nurses, since we can't predict which assignments are going to be the best assignments ever, we give recommendations. It's don't come into a hospital thinking you're the best thing to medicine since penicillin. Leverage your experience at big hospitals and really just varied hospitals and say, hey, maybe I'll make a suggestion. I've seen it done this way. Is this something you guys would be interested in learning more about? They say, yes, awesome, right? As a traveler, I actually helped write a policy one time on assignment when I was in the Cath lab. And I thought that was one of the coolest things is, wow, these guys really cared. But there were also multiple times where I personally said, hey, I've seen it done this way. Do you guys want to, learn more of this? And they said, no. And I'm like, okay. If your license isn't in jeopardy, part of being a travel nurse is you need to understand that I'm not here to change their policy. I'm here to work within their current and existing policies if they are not unsafe. And not unsafe doesn't mean something I'm not comfortable with or familiar with. It's something that is putting my license or the patient's health or both in jeopardy, right? But if their policies are such that, none of that's going to happen, it's just different, a travel nurse must be flexible. A travel nurse must be able to work in multiple environments and get the exact, same result. That's part of the travel nurse. And really, that's part of the excitement of travel nursing. It really grows your scope and grows your knowledge base by getting to see things done in multiple different ways. And, so a suggestion is embrace it. Don't fight it, right? To be a successful travel nurse, I think you must absolutely embrace change and evolution and widening your knowledge base. But hopefully that answers your question. It's more of a perspective shift than us guaranteeing anything. But I guess I can hit on the fact that part of what the agency is here for is to be your advocate. There is a very intentional reason our recruiters aren't recruiters. They are traveler advocates. They are the advocate for the travel nurse as the nurse is the advocate for the patient, right? That's, again, coming from what I can adopt from my experience as a nurse. We are the voice to the travel nurse with these hospitals, with these companies. And so if there's an issue or a concern, bring it to your traveler advocate or your recruiter's attention. That's what the company is here for, right? Frankly, you could almost argue that's why we get paid what we get from these assignments. Obviously the nurses get substantially more, which is great. I want to put as much in their pockets as possible, but, part of running the business and really why we are here is to bridge that gap between nurses they couldn't find in their own market as the hospital and the nurses having the experience that they deserve to have as coming in as, someone who's helping the staffing shortage. Let us be that voice if you believe there is something wrong. Sometimes even just let us listen, right? If you don't want anything done or you just had a bad long shift, let us listen, right? That's what we are here for, is that soundboard, because again, your agency should be that rock. That is the one constant from every assignment that you have. The agency is always there. Let them hear and handle anything that needs to be done. So we can't always guarantee everything's great going into it. What we can guarantee is you won't ever be stuck in an unsafe environment. Certainly, we need to try to make corrective action, give the hospital the ability to learn from what they've been doing and hopefully fix what they've been doing if it is truly putting something at risk, whether it's your license or patient safety. But, if it's not fixed, we got to get you out of there because doesn't do us any good for you to lose your license. It gives us a bad reputation, and no one makes money on, working with you if you can't work anymore, right? We don't want that. We want to make sure that you're with us for a long time. Again, not just that one assignment.
Definitely. Well, you guys definitely, as an agency, you definitely create a positive employment culture, especially with what you said about treating people, like they're guests at a hospital and being the advocates. Is there anything else that agencies like yourself should do to create a positive employment culture? I know you touched on quite a bit of it, but was there any others?
Sure. Yeah, to hopefully not be too redundant, right? Some more of the how we do it is really listen, seek to understand, and then to be understood, right? One thing I've learned, not just in business but in life, is oftentimes, sure, everyone has an ideal solution in mind for some sort of situation, but the solution typically matters less than the fact that they must be heard. And so that is something that's really that EQ piece, that emotional intelligence piece of, being where we are, right? Take care of the caregivers. That's really what we do. And, so we can't always guarantee the customer's right, the hospital is right, the nurse is right, the internal staff is right. But what we can guarantee is you will always be heard and a solution will be worked out together. But with that comes transparency, right? I think not just listening with the intent of understanding, not responding being a piece, but the transparency piece is big as well, right? Whether it's pay packages, again, there's a reason we don't make people sign up with our company to see where the job is as far as facility and what the expected pay package would be, right? We want everyone to know that up front because there's no secrets, right? We don't want to have secrets. We don't want hostages. We want volunteers. We don't want you to go through an hour-long application process just to learn that we don't have anything you want. No, we don't want that. But even on assignment, we will tell you almost anything you want to know that's within our knowledge base, right? I mean, I frankly can't think of anything I wouldn't be willing to tell a nurse because, again, coming from the travel nurse's perspective, I always just thought to myself, why is there anything the nurse can't know? This is their only assignment. It's one of many for us, which is great, and we're fortunate to have that. But this is their one assignment. Why can they not know everything that we know about it? Because guess what? They're the ones contractually obligated to fulfill this assignment. So why is it kind of industry standard to not tell them everything? And even, I've never understood why that was. So really, we made transparency kind of a policy. It's not even a core value of ours because it's just a non-negotiable, right? It's just, a right to play that you have to be willing to tell all of these things. But that also speaks to the fact that, we're proud of what we do here, right? Obviously, we're not going to tell nurses, no, we don't make any money on you. We are certainly a for-profit company because although the nurse would get a lot of money on that one assignment, we would be bankrupt for their next one, right? But we believe in and are proud of the amount that we make on each assignment because it's relative to what the nurse makes, right? We want the nurse to make a lot more. And so we have no secrets, whether it's hospital policies, call-off policies, guaranteed hours policies, cancellation policies. We want the nurse to know everything going into the assignment and not having a situation like I had where only after, never working even 50% of the hours a week that I thought I was going to work, did I learn that the hospital didn't guarantee I would work any hours and they could call me off an unlimited amount. Talk about, hey, cool, I just lost a ton of money over these 3 months, right? I don't want nurses to do that because that speaks to hostage, not volunteer. We want this to be something the nurse wants to do. And frankly, that's what we want because, again, it's not what can we do to place you as fast as possible and hopefully Murphy's Law doesn't happen and you don't have a bad worst case scenario where you figure out how bad this could have been because of what we didn't tell you. No, I want you to know the good, the bad, and the ugly because if it takes an extra week to find you the right job, we found you the right job. And that's how we can best ensure you're going to stay with us for a long time. And those are, I guess, a couple things that I would encourage any company outside of our industry, but certainly the ones within it, to focus on. And I think that would certainly help retention and traveler experience.
Definitely. And I agree with that transparency because that's a lot of times that I see too in the conversations is like that's just all they want to know. And keeping a lot of stuff from them, really like when they find it out, it's such a huge deal. And they make it a big deal. And so it's just better, I feel like the more transparent, the better, in my
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you did kind of touch on this too, how when travel nurses go into the hospitals, they're creating a positive culture for themselves. What are some other ways that they can create that positive culture when they get to an assignment?
Yeah, I think, it's again, it's kind of redundant from what I said, right? But it's going in with the mindset that, hey, I'm a guest. I'm not here to write policy, and embrace that, right? That's growth, right? I always loved going to hospitals where they had different IVs, where they had different, policies. I didn't love going to certain EMR systems that they might have had that were different. That was something I didn't love having. But, it's just go in with an open mind and go in knowing, hey, I have 39 shifts to work. If I'm here for 13 weeks and it's a 36-hour-a-week contract, right? I have 39 shifts. I'm here to help. I'm here to learn. And really, they need me and I want them, right? And if that's the mindset, and just be kind, right? I just personally am I have a core belief that you are not in control of virtually 100% of any situation you are in, but you are always in control of 100% of your reaction to every situation. Focus on what you can control, right? And again, if it's unsafe, absolutely escalate it. Sometimes if it's not unsafe, but it's just really hard or it's just really draining or emotionally draining, use your soundboard, which is your recruiter or your traveler advocate. But go into it with the fact that, hey, I am finally, as a travel nurse, getting paid and compensated for what I believe nurses should be compensated for the work that they do. Awesome. Embrace it. If I don't love it, I can be out of here in 13 weeks, right? Or if I do love it, I'm going to stay for as long as they'll have me. And I just really believe it's kind of like a law of attraction type of thing, right? Focus on good, focus on positive, and you're likely and oftentimes going to get that back, and typically even more than what you put out. So I think that is a big thing, but also, again, knowing you're not stuck here if it is unsafe, right? That is always a way out. And, that shouldn't be a first resort, because eventually if you cancel every assignment, certainly the agency is going to be like, well, wait a second here. No, this is also kind of hurting our relationship with hospitals if it is certainly not justified. But, just embrace it. Just love what you do, love who you're working with. And if not, go find who that company is. Find somebody that you can really believe you're appreciated with and can genuinely have those positive thoughts and affirmations as it pertains to your profession.
Awesome. That's great. So now that we're focusing on culture in this session, but we all know there are other important factors travel nurses must consider when taking this assignment. What else is needed to create an incredible employment experience?
Know everything, right? Knowledge is power. And when going into an assignment, that stands perfectly true. Again, be willing to look beyond the big pay package numbers, right? Be willing to look beyond just the hospital's location or where it is, or, the fact that it's an academic medical center, right? Or it's a, critical access hospital, whatever it may be. Dig deeper, right? Know everything that you may be upheld to within your contract. How often can this hospital call me off without any compensation? What does that mean? Right? How do I call off if I need to? What happens if this is really bad? When can they cancel me with how much notice? How much notice must I know to cancel? Again, it's not that you're going in and expecting that, but knowledge is power, right? You can't ever know too much about what you're signing up for. And so, I think that is one big piece. And that's something that, I am very grateful that our traveler advocates kind of go out of their way to educate new and even experienced travel nurses, right? My mentor has a saying, and I believe it comes from Mark Twain, and it's, it's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that just ain't so. And that's really speaking to kind of those experienced travel nurses, right? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, or what you believe you know is actually not what it really is, right? That's one of the real value adds that we try to provide to travel nurses is, let me tell you everything. Let me tell you what we know, and let me tell you what it means, right? And one of the Jeremyisms I have that some of our employees coin is, the easiest way to quickly instill genuine trust into somebody is not just by providing them with information they didn't ask for, but by providing them with information they didn't even know they needed to know, right? And that's really kind of that gap. That's that value add, if you will, that Nurse First aims to provide to every travel nurse, right? Educate you. We're eager to educate, and we want to be empathetic listeners, right? And that's, something that, again, we're passionate about. And I think that's something that can really be a value add to assignments that nurses are about to embark on.
That's amazing. Yeah. And someone did ask too in our community, they were asking if staffing agencies help with the onboarding and everything like that. And it sounds like, a lot of times that you guys do a good job at doing that.
I hope so. Right. And so, if what they mean by onboarding is facilitating occupational health stuff like titer collection, drug screens, physicals, fit tests, et cetera, absolutely. We set it up, we pay for it. I can't speak to every agency, but I do know that's what we do. If in the rare instance, we can't find a clinic close to them that's within our network to go get a drug screen or whatever it may be, and they go off on their own and do it, we tell them, hey, this is the amount we allocate for drug screens. Go ahead and route it through your insurance, if you will, and we'll pay up to this. That is, I can probably count on one hand in our 5 years, almost 6 years, how often that's actually happened. But absolutely. I mean, our job is to make this as painless as possible, right? Nurses aren't interested in credentialing. Frankly, that's the piece that all of us, myself included, when I was a travel nurse, really didn't like the most, right? Nurses want to go take care of people. They want to go take care of patients. They want to see an impact over a 12-hour shift of a patient getting better because of them, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, physically, etc. They don't want to focus on that stuff. Our job is to make that as painless as possible, or at least aim to.
That's awesome. Well, good job on your guys' end. And hopefully, like I said, more people will take note and do it that way. Out of all the aspects of an assignment, what do you think is commonly most overlooked?
Oh, gosh. The most overlooked aspect of a travel nurse assignment, the fine print, right? I mean, I think getting back to what are the guaranteed hours, what are the call-off policy, or what are the call-off policies, what's the cancellation policy, etc. I think, it's easy to get very excited when, you get your interview, you got your offer, you're seeing the big numbers, and you start envisioning, wow, I'm going to go from making $60,000 a year to $100,000+ a year, right? Like that's exciting. But I think reeling it back in and looking at kind of the potential ugly parts of the assignment, what happens in these worst case scenarios, I think is very natural to overlook. But, and I would even argue it's not the travel nurse's job to focus on that, right? Their focus should be on the excitement of what's to come. But the traveler advocate or the recruiter's job is to say, hey, just so you know, this is everything you need to know about the assignment, not just the sunshine and rainbows. Here's what could happen, but here's where we come into play, and here's how we prevent those things from happening as best we can, or here's what we would do if this were to happen. So really, again, it just kind of goes back to knowledge and, understanding what all you're getting yourself into, not just the positive aspects of it, but the whole picture, right? And prepare for the worst, expect the best, right? Or hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's really where your agency and your point of contact with that agency, recruiter, traveler, advocate, should be, quick to and certainly encouraged to by the agency to make sure there's a full understanding of what's going on here.
That makes sense, definitely. So you, to kind of start wrapping up, we would love to hear a little bit more of about the mission of Nurse First and why you started the company.
Yeah, mission is simple but not easy, right? So the mission is to turn staffing opportunities into amazing employment experiences. And just to kind of break that simple statement down into why it is so difficult is staffing opportunities are our relationships with our trusted clients, right? Our customers, our hospitals. And amazing employment experiences speak to how we treat internal staff, how we treat travelers, and frankly, what the hospitals can expect from both us as an organization and the travelers going to fill the need. And so really that back piece, that back end, that amazing employment experience is where our focus is. That's what we can control. And, how do we do it? Or even why do we do it, right? Why is this who we are? And it's just simply because I think it's the right thing to do, right? I mean, frankly, everybody is entrusting us with something that we work with. For instance, when I started hiring employees 4 years ago or so at this point, I couldn't have the focus be only on the travel nurses because I was no longer talking to the travel nurses. The only way that they could genuinely get that same passion about who we are is if I truly inspired people to represent who we are from an organizational standpoint. Well, you can't buy that, right? Salaries aren't enough for that. It is being true to who you are. And the only way that you have credibility is through consistency, right? If you deviate so much as one time from who you say you are, at best, you can only say this is who we are when it's convenient. Mm-hmm. And so that absolute relentless commitment to consistency in the focus being on amazing employment experience with our internal staff, which then goes out to travelers, which then really carries over to the hospitals. That was the mission, right? That is our mission. And that was why we were started. And just to kind of dig into it a little bit deeper as to why the why, right? Why that mission? It was from what I experienced as a travel nurse. I had experiences where I was at the same hospital with 5 other travel nurses, 3 of which worked for the same agency as me, and somehow I was getting paid $200 less than everybody, right? Well, that was interesting. And after digging a little bit deeper, it was an ignorance is bliss, right? The recruiter said, oh, sorry, yep, that's right, but this is what you signed up for. You don't have to worry about what other people make. Just focus on what you make. And, maybe we'll get you on an extension, because I'm sure this is supposed to be more of a PC conversation. I won't tell you exactly what I said, but the synopsis of it was there won't be another assignment. I'm going to start a company and run people like you out of business. And, it's just do the right thing. Focus on making our money and growing our reputation through volume, not as much as we can, snake our way to getting per contract. It's be a movement, right? Be kind of that light, if you will, this is how it can be, right? We all can win. And we do that by just consistently and relentlessly consistently do the right thing. Focus on the experience, because even if we lose a little bit of money in the short run, we keep that traveler for a lot longer. And guess what? They also probably collect a bunch of $1,000 referral bonuses from telling their friends about us. That is what we want. And so it's just always focused on how can we let everyone win? And we do that by providing something that maybe they are missing and the world is missing to a large degree with a lot of employers, which is focus on the employment experience. If you do right by the employees, it's amazing how everything else will take care of itself.
Definitely. Well, the company name says it all. Definitely. So that definitely is the perfect name for it. So lastly, what trends are you seeing for travel nurses, especially going into 2023?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that bill rates are dropping, right? And there's a lot of catalytic reasons behind that. First and foremost, FEMA money is currently gone. Hospitals don't have this virtually bottomless pit of money from the government to help staff them. And, so FEMA money's gone, rates are going to start going down, right? Hospitals obviously would ideally like to have no travel nurses because they are very expensive, but they are obviously a necessity at this current point in time. And we really see that moving forward, right? You can read these statistics all over the place, but I've read, by the end of, I think it's 2023, there's going to be almost a 500,000 RN shortage across the country. I've even seen some projections that say by the end of 2026, there will be a 3 million healthcare professional shortage across the country. Wow. So with that in itself, the landscape is extremely competitive to get staff to work at hospitals. Frankly, even if hospitals did a great job of staffing all of their needs without a contingent staffing or contingent workforce company like Nurse First Travel Agency, you can't change the fact that we are still short hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of healthcare professionals. So, there's still that need there, right? So as far as the industry outlook for travel nurses, I would say the demand for travel nurses, I am very bullish on. I still think it's going to continue to grow. Year over year. Obviously, we're going to have a little bit of a correction from what the needs were during the peak of COVID in 2021. And bill rates are going to continue to go down to what I believe will be a new floor. I don't know if we will ever get back to the old bill rate standard of $70, $75 bill rate averages. I do think at least over the next couple of years, if not indefinitely, that floor will be elevated. So all in all, bullish on the industry, but expect rates to continue to drop, right? I mean, the gold rush is, no longer as far as, the standard being $8,000 to $10,000 a week contracts, right? That's just not realistic, and it's certainly not sustainable. But the fact that travel nurses get compensated much more than staff nurses, I don't think is going to change. I think it's still going to find a new home higher than what it was pre-COVID. And it's just simple supply and demand, right? That's just economics and finance 101. There's just not enough healthcare professionals to meet the demand. And, the need is going to always be there for contingent workforce, certainly over the next handful of years.
Well, that's good to know. Everyone take note. Don't get too upset. Because we do see that a lot in our network group too. It's just, rates keep dropping. And, really hoping that it'll level out and everyone will be happy with their pay. But it's it is what it is at this point.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think, again, it's still finally, I think my first thought when I turned to travel nursing from staff nursing was, I am finally compensated for the good I am doing. I am finally compensated for the impact that we have on people, on patients. And so that is still going to be there. If the hospitals start raising pay of staff nurses, fantastic, right? But nonetheless, travel nurses are still going to be in demand for the sheer fact of nothing else that nursing schools aren't spitting out as many nurses as what it takes to not only stop the bleeding, but kind of, really close the wound, if you will, of the shortage that we are experiencing in healthcare professionals and travel nurses in particular. And so, the demand's going to be there. The compensation is obviously going to decrease from where it was, but it is, certainly still going to be more than what they are probably used to receiving as a staff nurse.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like the healthcare community really needs to take note from Nurse First and get some tips on how to treat their employees and the whole healthcare facility as a whole. But thank you so much, Jeremy, for your insight and for joining us today. And thank you again, for having Nurse First be our sponsor of the Fall 2022 virtual conference.
Absolutely.
You guys, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And we hope that a lot of you out there will consider a lot of different things when it's coming to your recruiter, your agency, and really know what to look for. So thank you again.
You bet, Rachel. Thank you so much.